Welcome back to ASH News TV. Today, we're going to talk about plenary abstracts. We just saw an amazing plenary session, and it led me to wonder. I try to conduct cutting-edge research, stuff that I think is amazing. I write it all up into an abstract, I submit it to the ASH site, and I press that submit button. What happens after that?
Well, this year what happened was a lot of abstracts, over 8,500. And they go into a complicated software system, and then they go out to an incredibly dedicated expert panel of over 600 reviewers on 100 different categories who are subject experts. Each panel of 6 reviewers gets all the abstracts in their category and rates them based on their quality, their novelty, the solidity of their methodology and statistics. And then they come back together a couple weeks later in August to have a conference call when they discuss together what they think the best abstracts are. And if there's discrepancies in scoring, they come to a consensus. And that's how you end up with over 1,000 oral abstracts, over 5,000 posters. And for the plenary session, each category puts forward 2 of their best abstracts, as well as any other highly meritorious abstracts they think should be considered for the plenary. And what works in a plenary session is abstracts are going to be of interest to a wide swath of ASH membership and meeting attendees. So something that if it's a basic science abstract, that a clinician could understand how that could be important in the clinic in a couple of years. If it's a clinical abstract, is it really going to be practice changing? Is it a new interesting drug that has a mechanism of action that basic scientists or translational scientists might be interested in, or that could be extrapolated to other diseases? So, I come up with a list of maybe 30 to 35 abstracts that we send out to the program committee and everybody looks at, thinks about. And then we get together in September as a program committee and we go through each of those abstracts. So what it comes down to is thinking about also having a breadth of hematology to present in the plenary session. It's usually a little bit of jockeying around if we have too many really strong abstracts in one exact similar areas. We strive to have something for everyone in the session.
Just to put this in context, we started with over 8,000 abstracts, brought it down to about 1,000 oral presentations, and now down to 6 plenary abstracts, less than a 1 in 1,000 chance of being selected for a plenary. So I have to ask you the ultimate unfair question. And I know this is like asking you to choose your favorite child, but of the plenary abstracts we just saw this year, did you have any favorites?
Well, Mikkael, it is really tough because that's like my teenage daughters, when they're not teenagers anymore, would ask me, who's your favorite? But because I study hematopoiesis in the laboratory and because clinically I work on bone marrow failure, I think my abstract of greatest interest was the one on platelet factor 4 and its impact on keeping hematopoietic stem cells youthful. Because not only did they show this pathway to be really important in very rigorous mechanistic mouse models, they actually also showed that they could take platelet factor 4, a protein that can be produced like any other cytokine, infused it into these mice, and if they were older mice, they could rescue them to become more youthful in terms of their stem cell function, their immune function. And so I think that's really amazing. And I think for some of the marrow failure diseases I work on, or some of the, leukemic patients that you give a whole lot of chemotherapy to and then they end up with, problematically damaged marrows later on, the ability to maybe protect them or rejuvenate them with platelet factor 4 is really, really exciting. So I think that was my favorite. What about you? What was your favorite child?
So I have an unfortunate bias or a fortunate bias. I was an author on an abstract that looked at the rates of transplantation in patients from different socioeconomic status communities, which I thought was fascinating. It basically showed that, as you might expect, people from lower socioeconomic status communities were less likely to be offered a transplant. Those who were more likely to be receiving food stamps were less likely to be offered a transplant, even though the outcomes of these patients was about the same as folks who weren't from those disadvantaged communities.
I like that one a lot too.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sitting with me for a few minutes, and thank everyone for tuning in today to ASH News TV to talk about the plenary abstracts at ASH.